Hi everyone, so now we're going to be looking at a video that addresses the common question that we get from aggregators. In the area where I have strong coverage, is my customer actually getting more choice than on a competitor's platform? And that is exactly what Choice answers. And to show you how we're going to answer the question live, talking about comparing brand availability on Glovo versus Uber Eats in the center of Madrid. And one important note is before we start, Choice works pin by pin. So when we say the center of Madrid, we're not talking about a whole broad zone here in the center of Madrid. We're actually talking about specific delivery pin in that area. So this is a very granular approach to answering this question. So to start off, you're going to go into the aggregators tab and select Choice. When you land here, you'll see the summary tab open by default. Across the top, you'll see brands, area, and cuisine, and you can use all of these to answer the query. On the left-hand side, you're going to want to set your filters. So you have this view as, which is the brand that you want to be viewing the data as. So in this case, I'm going to be using Glovo. And then the platform that you want to benchmark against. So in this case, I'm doing Uber Eats. And then you can also filter by city, but for this example, we'll be using Madrid. And then the time frame is the recent data that you want to be looking at, whether 7 days or the last 30 days. And so once you're done, you go and click apply for the filters. So everything you see here from now on is Glovo's position relevant to Uber Eats in Madrid. So I just want to quickly walk you through the summary tab here. So here in the summary tab, we have the total amount of brands in Madrid. Then you have the total amount of brands that Glovo has, and then you have the total amount of brands that Uber Eats has. So as you can see, Uber Eats has more brands available than Glovo does. And then what does this chart here mean? This bar chart breaks things down into two metrics. So first you have coverage. So you have good coverage and bad coverage. So these are the brands that exist on both platforms. So for example, we have, let's say Burger King, and it has 160 locations across Madrid available on both Glovo and Uber Eats. But if Glovo covers 120 of those locations and Uber Eats covers 150, then Glovo has a coverage gap of 30. So you have the brand, but you're not loading it in as many locations as your competitor. So here you can see that Glovo has 1,366 locations loaded less than Uber Eats, and they only have 43 good ones. Then you have brand inventory. So you have bad inventory and good inventory here. This is all about brands that you don't have at all. So bad inventory means that brands that Uber Eats carry that Glovo doesn't. Good inventory means brands that you have that Uber Eats doesn't. This is your exclusive edge or your gap to close. So as we can see, Glovo has way less brands available than Uber Eats does. So if you scroll down, you'll see the gap by city table. This is everything summarized in one view with the delta between you and Uber Eats. So you can see, for example, all of this more specific and more granular, the total bad gap in terms of numbers in Madrid, the inventory, the coverage, as well as the good gap. So this is basically translating this into a more granular form of data for you to see. To the right, the map shows choice by area. So the hexagons are all color coded. So green means that Glovo is performing well in that zone. And this gives you an instant visual of where in Madrid you're winning or losing on choice. And below that, the brand inventory trend here shows the full historical picture when Glovo added certain brands, how inventory evolved over time. So this is not a past 7 days or past 30 days. This is historically once we added the platform to the dashboard. And then you also have below location performance, and it's also historical, so you can track how specific pins have moved. So now clicking into the brands tab, you can see the same data but broken down by brand. So you'll get the full list of brands here. If there's one specific that you want to look for, so for example, maybe KFC, you can do that as well. And if you want to see each brand's rating, you can go over here to the right side and you can see that delta change that's changed versus the last 30 days. So as we can see, the rating went down by 0.72% for Burger King. And then you can also see the number of ratings. You can see the number of ratings went up versus the last 30 days. And then you'll be able to see here in this column, the number of locations that Glovo has available for Burger King brand overview, as well as Uber Eats. So Uber Eats has way more Burger King branches available than Glovo, and it's kind of like that for most of them, except for example, Ben and Jerry's. Another thing to note is that you can multi-select brands in case you want to assign this to a BD or sales rep. So if Glovo is missing a brand that Uber Eats has, your team can act on it from there. So you can assign that to someone from your team. Or if you don't want to multi-select, you can also just assign someone individually by selecting it and assigning a name here. All of this column in status is if it's an opportunity, that means they're currently not available on your platform and you can go and send your sales team to go after these opportunities. Now, to answer the original question, In the center of Madrid, you can click by the area tab, and in that gap by area table, you can search for the area or pin that corresponds to the center of Madrid. Then you can select it, and that entire summary view now will now recalculate that for that specific pin. So you won't no longer be looking at Madrid. You're seeing exactly what a customer ordering from that specific location in the center of Madrid sees on Glovo versus Uber Eats. So now once I've selected my specific pin, as you can see up here, you're no longer looking at all of Madrid. You're seeing exactly what a customer ordering from this specific location or area sees on Glovo versus Uber Eats. So here we can see that gap by cuisine breakdown, so I can see like which foods categories Glovo is winning on or losing on at that specific pin. So as we can see, Glovo here is losing on the Thai and Uber Eats is winning. And then you can see maybe, for example, if Glovo has a strong Italian coverage, but a gap in sushi, and that's immediately visible in this area here. And then if you scroll down a bit more, you'll even be able to see the brand list. So this is every brand available to a customer ordering from that pin side by side, comparing Glovo versus Uber Eats. So you can see, of course, all the other information again, the branches that are available to that specific pin, the rating, number of ratings, and of course, how many of those branches are available on Glovo versus Uber Eats. So this helps answer that question, and this is the customer's actual choice from that exact location. So one thing to note is there's another section on the platform called coverage, so aggregators and coverage. This looks more at delivery logistics, so delivery time, fee, distance, range per area, and this tells you whether you can reach that customer. But this, what we just learned, is choice. This is the next layer. So once you actually reach them, what are you actually offering? How many brands, how many cuisines, how does that compare to what Uber Eats or your competitor is showing that same customer? It's the same data, but it's a different point of the view, and coverage answers, can I deliver here? Whereas choice answers, what am I giving them when I do?